So it's not just the first pitch of this game, it's the first pitch of my life. So go easy on me. I'm an architect, so I'm into space and spaces and stuff. Matterport, if you haven't come across it, is a pretty cool software. It's been around about 10 years now. I've used it personally. It's pretty amazing. It's got, the opportunity. They have their own hardware and software, but they've really started branching out into having, phone-based device or phone-based subscription. I personally used it for my own apartment, and it worked amazingly well for what I needed because I was looking to move in, and it kind of gave me a reference point. I could go back, measure stuff, make sure I understood the space, and start laying it out before I even decided to take the apartment. So pretty awesome stuff. They went public just this year with a SPAC with about 600 million. Lux Capital is one of their big investors. They do have one founder remaining, the chief scientist here, Dave. And there was a previous founder, but they parted ways. They've got SaaS and hardware. They're very much leaning towards a lot more on the SaaS side to really build their subscription, and in particular, licensing revenues. Their mission isn't very clear, I would say, on their website, but indexing the physical world is one of their taglines that I think is pretty indicative of what they do. The market cap right now is about 5.9 billion, and the revenue around 107, and price to sales is 69. Profit is somewhere in the offing someday, looking like in the next 4 years is what their target is. But in the sense of what they can do, it's really the entire built environment, the built world. They want to be able to do data capture of that and then find ways to monetize that, whether it be with the design world, the real estate world, which is a big one, obviously Open Door and Redfin and others. And if you've ever been on any of these sites or StreetEasy, you'll find a lot of their work, the doll houses that they've got. But they're really looking for the Android to really take over for them and build even more market share. They've already got a lot of really big partnerships. They do a lot with people like Autodesk and all these other. I think things to watch for the future are try to hit these targets. They're trying to get to 73% gross margin. They're in the 50s right now. They want to be profitable by 2024. I think they need to do really good, smart capital allocation, connect with the right teams like Autodesk they already have, Trimble, Pinterest, Unity, Microsoft, a lot of big names we all know, and to continue to innovate on their IoT, their things like BMS monitoring integration, building system integrations, and really try to keep going with that growth of shifting towards that subscription and licensing model. And to really, they need to continue to support, diversity and optionality and build out what they've built so far and really make it something that can take advantage of the IP they have, but also to find ways to keep that protected. I'm concerned about, is there someone that's going to jump in this space someday? Right now, they're the only game in town, but I think there's always, everyone's out there always innovating. You've got the big names like Alphabet, et cetera, that have a lot that they can throw at this. But I think it's a pretty amazing software. And they're already ahead of the game. They're already in the Icelandverse. Instead of going to the silly metaverse, you can just go check out a little house in Iceland if you'd like. And you can zoom right in there, check it out. You can do a measurement. You can say, hey, I want to see like how big is this thing? So I can measure across and say, okay, that's 8 feet 9. I can fit my couch there. Really simple stuff, but there's a lot you can do from actual building assessment tools. There's insurance companies that they work with who go out and they build with what's called the digital twin. And this is really just the visual part of that. But that can be if you get their cameras and so forth, you can be building real point clouds, which can go into your building management systems and into your models, and then build off of that. Insurers can take this information and use it as a baseline if there's been an event to really understand what the value of what the value of the properties are and so forth.
Yeah, that was a great pitch. One of my questions is, just looking through that and listening to your pitch, I do, security and emergency management consulting. Has there been any talk of them getting into that world? Because a platform like that can provide, in-depth awareness of spaces would be able to definitely, assist in that planning. So has there been any talk in working with, Homeland Security or emergency management agencies with that?
Yeah, they actually are already part of the FedRAMP, and then I think it's called the Fed AWS cloud system. So they're already kind of working within the federal government for some of that sort of thing. And I think, and they work a lot with people like Cushman Wakefield and a lot of property, large scale real estate teams and JLL who then partner in with security groups to help, share that data back and forth. And I think part of their story of the long term would be to be licensing that kind of data out to all these different pieces, that make up the physical world. So whether it's security or power or water, anything that's coming in and out of a building, and then obviously occupants and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity to build that. The digital twin you guys might have heard about. I think sometimes the assumption is that is just, like a cardboard model of like, well, it's the building and now we have the building again, but it's really more about, the physical space is part of it, but a lot of it is about everything that's happening inside that building. How is it constructed? How are the systems running? Where are people going? What's the thermal changes in the building from an environmental standpoint? So it really is one piece of that, and they can connect with other providers of that data to link that data to a physical place and to an image of that physical place instead of just a coordinate.
This is a relatively small company. The technology seems promising. Everyone from like Wayfair, Zillow, Unity, this seems like a buyout candidate, an add-on to so many different companies. Has there been any talk, at least that you've seen, of anything along those lines?
I haven't seen any, like hard talk of like, yes, these people are interested, but I mean, to me, the first one is Autodesk because, they're a serial acquirer and they've made some really smart acquisitions over the years. And so I could imagine something like that happening. I think I was just reading some articles recently where people saying, well, is this a company or is this a tool? And I think for me, that comes down to the IP and how much they really control that IP and really control the way, the way they use it, the way they connect it. If it becomes just something like, oh, this is a tool I can have, then I'm just going to buy you. I think that is a potential for them. I think if they wanted to remain independent, it's really going to be about making themselves more worthwhile to partner with others than to be taken over by one group.
Hey, Seena, great pitch. I like how you did a product demo too. That was nice.
Thanks.
So I guess my question, if I'm thinking about this as an investment, trading currently, I think around 60 times sales.
Right.
And I do think that this is currently in its current iteration more of a product rather than company. And you have encroachment coming from much better capitalized peers like Unity, Alphabet, like you said, Autodesk. What sort of upside do you think is ahead, especially while Matterport is trying to not just defend margins, but grow them in the face of increasing competition?
Well, I mean, right now they are the leader in the world of that kind of space capture. There isn't anyone else that's close. They have about 6 or 7 competitors, but they've got the vast majority of the market share there. And I think it like I say, I think it comes down to whether or not somebody really wants to put in their own. If I feel like Unity is a little different, like they're dealing with gaming and they're creating these worlds. I know that they have there's other interlinks with the world of architecture and design as well, but I think these guys are a lot more purpose focused on taking the real world and digitizing that and creating that opportunity. I think where they do have their cameras and you can get a much better product out of that in the sense of getting an actual what's called a point cloud to use that for BIM. Like if I do it with my phone or even the newest phones with the LiDAR, you can't export that to a point cloud yet. But I think if they can continue to innovate to the point where they have that, they can be on that edge and bring more people in more quickly. That's really kind of their path to success, I think.
Yeah, really awesome pitch. Thanks for the great overview. I have, like Tyler pointed out, I have a bit concerned about the return. 69 times sales, 50% gross margin right now. It feels like it's already priced in. So what kind of a return profile you're expecting from this over like next 5 years? Like probably 20%, 5%, 60%, I don't know, whatever. And the follow-up to that is like, there are still warrants outstanding. There will be a lot of dilution. I don't know how much. What do you expect from that event when it triggers?
Those are great questions. I don't have a lot of the detail on that, on the warrants and those impacts. I think for me personally, I'm a shareholder. I actually got it back when they were in the SPAC because I saw they were coming. And to me, this is more of like a 10, maybe 100 bagger way off in the future if it doesn't get taken over. So to me, it's kind of I bought those and I take a look at them occasionally, and I'm surprised it's already a double since it before it went. I guess I may have got it right at the SPAC price or something before it opened, but it's I think that it's definitely not one to just dive all in on and say, well, these guys are going to win it. But I think in the next, if they can hit their targets over the next 5 years to start, increasing those margins and make those more than just gross margins and get some actual operating margins where they're pulling a profit. I could see them, getting to that 10x somewhere in the next 5 to 7 years.
Perfect. And I'm a bad host because I'm going to let Pat ask another question. This is going to put us a little bit over time, but I just love, this is a great discussion. So Pat, go for it.
Yeah, you mentioned you're an architect. I don't know if you're involved in like writing the specs or not, but are like Matterport or like spatial recordings part of like deliverables now? Or is that like standard operating?
So excellent question. So the firm I work for, where we're able to, we actually use that for what we call existing conditions documentation. So our teams will go in, we have within the firm's about 12 offices, and they have a few Matterport cameras that you can kind of have sent out, because the cameras are around $3,000 when you want the full deal. And so they'll take those in and they will make these digital twins, let's say, of the existing condition, especially in any sort of renovation, so that they can then always have that record and go back and it goes right into Autodesk Revit, and they can use that as the basis of measurement and not just measurement, but identifying like, okay, what was that? If it's more of an industrial space, what are the systems that we see there? What pipe is that? Where is that going? So it's not necessarily a deliverable, although it could be, but I don't see that in the architecture. I work in healthcare, so it would be less of a deliverable there. But it is a means and method where we'd say, look, that's in our proposal, we're going to do this job, but including that, it's going to cost you X thousand bucks because we're going to come in and do a Matterport of the space before, so we have a documentation, and then the client can have that as well. In real estate, I think there's opportunity there. People that might be doing those kind of in that architecture, you would be there. There's more renovation happening. So part of a deliverable might be, that you do the work and then you have a Matterport scan done, and then you can sell that to the building owner, as an item. Now, I think Matterport, mostly architects are like small potatoes. So they go for the real estate guys, they go for the big ownership. They want to get those big licensing and big jobs, with those people to have, recurring revenue to say, I live in Manhattan, and apartment building in Manhattan, 30 stories or something, we have the contract for that. Anytime anything gets renovated, Matterport comes in, and does the work, or we license you the software and, you just pay us the fees.